447-750 machine by RM Ham, which is linked to ours, or by Echolink at W0UPS-R. Probably even the comment stream on the YouTube stream, if somebody's available to take that, which usually Dave is. Any of those ways are available to you to participate, and we like to have stations participating. You try to respect everybody's comments and statements, and very careful about that. We like to hear from people between nets. You can email us at Elmers, like the name Elmer, Elmers at NCARC.net. Elmers are the folks that helped us learn and get started in amateur radio. So that email address is there, and you can make comments about the net. You can ask questions, post questions there that you might like answered on the net, and such things. So please feel free to make use of that. Topic suggestions are always welcome and very much appreciated. So please keep that in mind. I'd like to have the content of this program be what you folks would like to learn from it. So do please feel free to make those comments. So we'll begin with check-ins just to see who's here. They're not required. Checkout isn't required, but it's just nice to know who's listening when we begin.
This is KE0RXF, Randy in East Fort Collins.
Alpha Echo 0, Bravo, Quebec, Daryl in Longmont.
Good evening, Kevin. Whiskey 0, Delta Delta Zulu, Dave in Greeley.
This is Kilo 0, Lima Alpha Oscar, Luann in Loveland.
Okay. Got the following stations. We did have one double, so this is who I heard. K0LAO, W0DDZ, AE0BQ, there was a double there, KE0RXF. Welcome all, and thank you for being here. Who did I miss, and who else is out there?
This is November 0, Echo Mike Papa, Greg in Fort Collins, along with Debbie, K0, Delta Bravo Echo.
This is Whiskey 7, Kilo Romeo Uniform, Rick and Drake.
This is Kilo Bravo 0, Sierra Charlie X-Ray, George and Bertha.
Kilo Delta 0, Yankee Oscar Papa, Scott in Fort Collins.
Horsetooth. Alpha, Echo 0, Charlie, Foxtrot, Ben, Fort Collins.
Okay. We'll go back through who I've got here. AE0CF. Incidentally, Ben, you may be aware, I don't know, but you've got a lot of hum on your signal again this evening, which you haven't had now for quite a while. So I don't know what you've got going there, but I just wanted to let you know. So that's AE0CF, welcome. KD0YOP, KB0SCX, W7KRU, K0DBE, and N0EMP. Thank you very much for checking in, folks. Anybody else who would like to check in at this time? Okay. Before we start, I would like to make an announcement. Some of you may have been reading about a move to cease funding for the National Bureau of Standards WWV station. The argument is that it's no longer needed. I think we all agree as amateurs that that being gone would decrease a lot of things that we usually depend on, and decrease a lot of useful information that we normally get. So there is a petition. I do not have the address. Maybe somebody else does, and I'll leave a break in a minute to get that if somebody else has it. That is very easy to sign, but they need a fair number of signatures. At this point, I think we've only got something like 600-700 signatures, and we need a lot more than that to maintain that. If I think we can easily get that posted to the NCARC website, and so that those of you who haven't already seen it have a chance to have access to it. Would anybody like to pass that info along now? Does anybody have access to it? Okay, nobody at this point. So we'll get that posted, but I would personally at least encourage all amateurs to seriously consider what would amateur radio be like and shortwave listening be like without WWV, and make your choice there. It's a long age-old institution that I think many of us would really hate to see go away. I'm not absolutely sure how they would work it either, because there's still a lot of technology depending on it, so who knows exactly how they're planning on doing that. But do give that some consideration. So we'll get that published in the NCARC newsletter as soon as we can.
WIQ here, and UTC was originally a synchronization of all the WWV stations. So I don't know what would take WWV's place, because UTC was originally an average of all the WWV stations.
Universal Standard Time is based in the UK, not WWV, W0LEV.
combination of things there. Anyhow, it's definitely something to consider, and so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of it there. Okay. Thank you, Carrie, for checking in. I'm writing notes here. Our topic tonight, which I came up with very late, and I do apologize for that, is digital HF modes, PSK31, FT8, FT8 call, and others. Why do we use them? Which ones are best for what uses? What are their advantages one over another? Why might we enjoy them? Various questions that we might be able to answer, at least those of you who are here who have played with those modes. I have not, so I'll be interested to hear what people have to say about them. Would anybody like to start out with comments about these various HF digital modes?
N0WIQ about PSK anyway.
WIQ, go.
PSK stands for phase shift keying. In other words, you're sending digital data by changing the phase shift of the signal, which requires a stable situation to decode it. Well, since all amateur radios are crystals referenced, then the crystals have to be within a certain spec to do this. But I've never played with PSK, but I've read about it, so that's all I got to say about it.
W0LEV.
LEV.
Yeah, the original intent of K1JT adapting his routines for amateur radio was one to allow low power stations to make contacts where they otherwise could not. Also, stations with compromised antennas with 100 watts to make contacts under very compromised conditions. I personally like the Echo and things like that, where it will decode as much as 33 dB below tangential noise. I'm, yes, a bit esoteric, but the bottom line is you don't need a kilowatt. You don't even need 100 watts. I've had 5 watts go all the way around the world. Several others of us in Berthoud have done the same. High power is to be discouraged, but it's good for low power and compromised installations. W0LEV, and I'm speaking specifically of the WSJT applications.
Okay, and just to clarify, we're saying WSJTF, is that correct?
Yeah, okay, WSJT-X, yeah, all of them under that umbrella.
Okay, I just wanted to get the figures down properly here. I wasn't haggling over types or anything like that. Just wanted to make sure I had the acronym down properly. Okay, that's great, and I thank you for the summarization there. Can you tell me a bit about the different types? And you mentioned Echo specifically. Can you tell us what the differences are between the different types and why there are advantages from one over another, or why certain ones might be better suited to certain purposes?
Oh, I can take a stab at it, Kevin. Bottom line is how far into the noise you want to decode your signal. FT8 and FT8 call are of recent the most popular. However, they are probably the least capable of digging way down into the noise. Let me get up. This will do better. My HT is losing its batteries. FT8, I have seen decode as low as minus 25. Echo and Whisper, I have seen decode as low as minus 34 dB below tangential noise. And I'm assuming tangential noise since nobody has gotten a reasonable explanation of how signal plus noise is calculated in that program. It depends on how weak you want to go. Personally, I enjoy 5 watts. I do not do FT8 because I'm not out to do all kinds of contacts with everybody I possibly could. I'm more interested in technical challenges like detecting my signal going around the world or off the moon, or what the coverage is on Whisper, depending on where I set the beacon up. Whisper, yeah, it's good for evaluating antennas. You set it up basically as a beacon. You get back those who have decoded you, and it's just a good idea what parts of the country or world you're reaching. However, all of the WSJT-X are really designed to decode signals below the noise floor.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Other comments anybody would like to make before we start entertaining questions? Well, except for mine, which I started with already just to get discussion going. Anyway, other comments first?
N6GN.
N6GN, good evening.
Came in a little bit late here, and it sounds like digital modes are a topic. I thought I'd add in that I do operate as many as 8 parallel receivers on low frequency LF that is 2190 meters through 10 meters, 24 hours a day. I'm in South Fort Collins, so if somebody has wants to play around in the middle of the night when the band's not open or just wants to check, I have a receiver spotting into the database on Whisper all the time.
90WIQ with a question for Dave.
Okay. Glenn, thank you. It is Glenn, correct? N6GN?
That's right, Glenn. I'm in South Fort Collins, and I simultaneously monitor those bands, so you won't have to wait. If you transmit in a Whisper interval, I should decode it.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that. Wow. Okay, WIQ. Go ahead, please.
Dave mentioned signals below the noise floor, and I was wondering how the noise floor was defined, because when I was doing stuff at HP, the noise floor was often defined by the receiver itself, and external noise was always kept out of the situation. So are we talking external noise or noise within the receiver?
Okay, if you must, antenna noise, and that's fit to the receiver. That's at HF, most times well above the receiver noise or system, receiver noise. Overall, system noise, which includes the receiver noise plus antenna noise. But again, antenna noise overwhelms receiver noise unless you're running a cat whisker and galena receiver.
have common mode noise, which is very common.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, other comments or questions, please? We have a lot of different stuff involved here, so I could see us coming up with a lot of different questions, how the individual ones work. I know that some are better for actual QSO, some are better for just making contacts, some have a variety of uses. Any questions anybody has that we could get some of these folks to answer?
N0 EMP.
EMP, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a brief comment on kind of an overview of the topic, because we've kind of dived right into some very specific modes. The first real, even though people say Morse code is the first digital mode, I guess that's technically correct, but talking about machine readable and machine generated modes, radio teletype was probably really the first, and that was around before there were home computers. And it was initially, and it still is, two tones, two separate audio tones that represent ones and zeros. Initially, that was decoded by filtering those tones with analog filters and running it through a machine to print out, group the ones and zeros into groups and decode the letters and print it on a teletype. Let me let this reset here. As microelectronics became more advanced and we started getting computers like TRS-80s and things like that, there were some computer programs that could generate and decode radio teletype. From there, we got sound cards for computers, and not too long after that, we started having sound card modes, which would either decode a previous machine code like radio teletype, or people started making their new modes because it was easier to implement that if you could use a sound card to encode and decode the mode. And that's where we got PSK31 was probably one of the first sound card modes. And then after that, there's been just a huge explosion of different modes that are either strictly sound card or can be encoded and decoded by a sound card. The main characteristic of these different modes is the ones that use more bandwidth and don't get through the noise as well are faster, and you can either do fast file transfers that are faster than you can type, or at least, like with PSK31, they'll keep up with average typing speed, and those are good QSO modes, where you can have a QSO back and forth. Some of the modes that we started off talking about tonight, like Whisper and FT8, are extremely narrow band and extremely slow. They get way down in the noise and can be recovered, but you can't really do a QSO with them because they're so slow. So that's the trade-off between speed, bandwidth, and noise immunity and zero EMP.
Zero WIQ with an addendum.
Okay, this is N7GES with the TechNet. Oh, my mind went blank. Greg, thank you for the. We've had several good little summaries of various aspects, and I think this is good because it can provide some more questions. WIQ, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Kevin. It's one of those things, CW has been turned into a CW encoder and decoder for computers. And so you can mechanize that as well. But CW is a phase width, or should say, pulse width modulation, as well as the number of bits that are sent for each character. And so, and CW is spec'd to be 50 dB below the carrier in a signal, no signal situation. So it is still the best low signal around the world, so to speak, with low power. But on the other hand, the digital modes come close simply because they are sending ones and zeros on and off, on and off. But they are also riding on a carrier. So what can I say? Back to net, N0WIQ.
AE0BQ with comment.
BQ, go, please.
Right. I'm tempted to read off of Wikipedia just to frame the conversation. It's actually pretty concise. I'm just passingly familiar with digital modes, but WSJT, as someone said, -X, as it's called, there are basically 5 modes, a couple of slow ones and a couple of fast ones, and one that's kind of dedicated to moon bounce, Earth, Moon, Earth. And so FSK 441, JT6M, JT65, JT9, and FT8. FT8 being the most recent. FSK 441 was introduced in 2001. The first mode with WSJT. WSJT refers to a piece of software that was developed by Joe Taylor. That's where the JT comes from, the K1JT, WSJT tie-in there. Anyway, and that uses, it's open source and developed by a small team and uses digital signal processing techniques. Clearly, you need a sound card interface or, to your radio, or radio that provides raw audio. Pause for reset. And AE0BQ. The one that I hear the most about, and this is probably the one I'd be most interested in, would be FT8. A bunch of specs here listed out. The transmit receive sequence length is 15 seconds. Message length is 75 bits. Modulation is 8 FSK tones simultaneously with a spacing of 6.25 hertz. And there's a whole bunch of this stuff on Wikipedia. Lots of technical detail. I don't want to take up the whole net reading Wikipedia, but clearly I did want to mention all of those modes. FSK 441, JT6M, is intended for meteor scatter and ionospheric scattering of signals, and it's especially optimized for 6 meter. And then JT65 was intended for use with EME or moon bounce, and then JT9 is intended for MF and HF use, so it uses 9 FSK signal, occupies less than 16 hertz, and has 1 minute transmission intervals. FT8 is multi-hop E's, where signals may be weak and fading, opening short, so it's 15-second bursts. And anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. Hopefully everyone can, that'll help frame the discussion. So once again, recapping 5 modes here. We're talking about FSK 441, JT6M, JT65, JT9, and FT8. Over. Back to net. AE0BQ.
Okay, thank you. This is N7GES. Do we have any questions at this point? We've had a lot of information go by. I'd like to stop and see first, before we go with any more info, if we have questions about the topic that people would like answered.
AE0BQ.
BQ.
Right. Notwithstanding my dissertation there, sorry, I would really like someone to just give in plain English what physical equipment is required and software is required for doing any of these modes. Pick one or pick all of them if you know how to do all of them. I would suspect that it involves some sort of here's a question. Can it be done with sort of a rudimentary DIY interface to the mic, speaker, and PTT? AE0BQ, back to net.
EMP.
EMP, go please.
Yeah, depending on your radio, if you have an ICOM 7200 or an ICOM 7300, maybe an ICOM 7100, I'm not sure. The equipment list that you need is as follows. A USB cable. That's the end of the list. If you're going to, that does the audio and the push-to-talk control, all on one cable. If you're going to, if you don't have one of those radios, you want to use push-to-talk line and audio lines for speaker and microphone. There's a couple companies. One is called Echolink that makes different interfaces and cables for specific radios to interface to your sound card, and that again handles the push-to-talk and the audio pathways both directions. The gentleman was talking about the different whisper modes, or the different Joe Taylor modes, and the 5 different modes I think he listed off there. That's a very small subset of the sound card modes. There's probably 100 different modes people have tried in the past. And software such as FLDigi is free, works on Windows, Mac, Linux, I believe. I know it works on Linux. Multi-PSK is another free software that does a whole bunch of different modes. But with a sound card nowadays, there are fax modes, there's picture modes, there's text modes, just dozens and dozens and dozens of different modes. Main problem can be trying to figure out what it is you're trying to decode, so you try to use the right mode. And some of these different softwares have, or some of the websites have examples of what the spectrum looks like and what it sounds like to help you know what you're listening to. N0 EMP.
GN.
Stand by, GN, for just a moment. EMP, I know that the computer is a given along with that USB cord for the newer radios, and of course for any of the others. So let me just ask real quick, how powerful a computer is needed? Is it do we need to deal with fairly high, very modern machines? Will some of the older, slower machines work with this stuff?
You don't need a lot of power. I was playing with sound card modes just to decode them and read the traffic with single core computers like a Pentium 4, even a Pentium 3 chip, single core would do it. Any modern quad core, Pentium I series, i3, i5, i7, or an equivalent AMD is plenty of horsepower. One thing you need is a good sound card, and laptops usually have a pretty crummy sound card, so I will use an external USB sound card in conjunction with a laptop, like a Sound Blaster USB sound card, because they're better than the usual ones that are built into a laptop.
Okay, thank you. On down, GN.
Yeah, a number of comments. Certainly you don't need a lot of computer. A Raspberry Pi can do 10 to a dozen simultaneous decodes of Whisper. There's one in Hawaii right now running simultaneously, two Kiwis actually, feeding an audio, and one Raspberry Pi decoding 12 separate bands and reporting them to the database. I wanted to add for people who want to get started, if it hasn't been said, go to whispernet.org, WSPRNET.org, and you can also just Google Whisper or WSATX. You'll get the site, Joe Taylor site. You can download the code from that site for Windows, Mac, or Linux systems, and it's easy to do. And one other thing I was going to comment is relative to CW being a better mode or a more weak signal mode. I think that's not true. A trained ear can hear a signal, can copy CW around 10 dB below the noise in the sideband bandwidth, while Whisper 15, for example, can decode almost 40 dB below. Very, very different. And if you go to whispernet.org and bring up the map, you can see what people are hearing and what power the stations they're hearing are running around the world. It'll be pretty revealing, I think, in 6GN.
WIQ about sound cards?
WIQ, go.
Built-in sound mechanism in a laptop has to be a little older than about 10 years before it's not usable for some of this stuff. And there's a program out there called Sound Modem, and it will set up for 4 or 5 different modes. That's about all I know about it. And then you have to decode the data stream, but anyway, that's it. Sound modem and something to decode the data stream with.
Okay. Just clarify, WIQ, you say you have not done any of these modes yet. Is that correct?
Oh, I've done packet radio, which is a dual-tone encode-decode mechanism for the packet, and that uses AX25 for the encoding and decoding the data stream. But what I'm saying is the sound modem program covers several different modes. It's a kind of a pain to set up, but it's also very versatile, so I'll just leave it at that. And then the software to encode and decode the data stream is another package you'd have to put on your computer to use the sound card with sound modem.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't trying to point a finger. I was just curious what your exposure was. And yes, I do remember that you've worked with the higher baud rate packet data systems and that sort of thing. So, and yes, there's going to be some similarities, except for the software and the decoding and encoding and that sort of thing, but certainly similar sorts of things. Okay, thank you. Other questions, please?
W0ASP with a check-in and a question.
Good evening, Terry. Welcome, and go ahead, please.
When you're talking about signal-to-noise ratios in digital modes, I don't know what reference you're using on that. It sounds like you're using transmit power over the entire band over some large bandwidth compared to signal bandwidth over a very narrow bandwidth. I'm a bit confused as to the definition of signal-noise ratio for these digital modes, and where they say they can work 40 dB below SNR. Could someone explain that?
2,500 hertz.
Okay, hold on. We had a double. I heard 2,500 hertz. I'm guessing that somebody else was in there that might have a bit more info or something as well. Who was the other station?
LEV.
Go ahead, Dave.
Terry, I can't answer your question. A number of others on the forum have also wondered the same thing. I ended up actually emailing K1JT, and, well, the email that came back wasn't terribly kind. Kind of like he treated me like a newbie who didn't know nothing. I don't know, Terry, and it's been one of my burning questions about the WSJTX applications as well. I don't know. He ultimately referred me to a write-up on the K1JT page. It's a link off his page. I have not gone there, but he didn't really want to elaborate how he calculates signal plus noise to noise. I wish we had an answer. W0LEV.
Okay, now, 500 hertz. I think that was you, Glenn, was it? You want to come back and explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, that was me, Kevin, N6GN. Yeah, I think he's actually pretty thorough in describing not only the reference bandwidth, but the test measurements and systems, and various, in fact, he even provides sample sound files for various modes to test decoders on. There's also several very good write-ups, a couple in QST in the last 5 years. I can't cite cite it. But the websites, both Joe Taylor's Whisper, whispernet.org is for Whisper particularly. The other modes a lot of them get put into PSK Reporter as postings, of people hearing each other and working each other. But as far as the technology, between whispernet.org, which is more of a forum, most of that, and Joe Taylor's site, which has details and has links to documentation, I think you'll find pretty extensive detail on not only signal and noise, but a lot of other aspects of it. And I think it's pretty carefully defined in 6GN.
The IQ with another bit of information.
Standby IQ, WIQ, there was another station. Go ahead.
Yeah, this LEV, I just thanked W6GN there, and I need to go read that stuff. I've been putting it off. Thank you. W0LEV.
BQ with a comment.
Okay, stand by. Let's see, BQ, WIQ, taking a list of people here. Terry, did that kind of begin to answer your question there a little bit?
Kevin, well, it didn't answer it, but it sent me to the place where I could find the answer. W0ASB back to net.
Okay, excellent. WIQ, go ahead, please.
No, there's one little thing. There's an equation out there that defines the amount of bandwidth you need for a given data rate. And so, that might be something to look up also. I just noticed there, I haven't bothered to look it up or anything. I just noticed there, no, I will have to look it up at some time if I do the experimenting I want to do. So, I'll just put that information out there so that people can be aware of it. And wider bandwidths typically let more noise in, so there's a crossover there.
Okay, thank you. BQ, what you got?
Okay, the confusion stems from the definition of signal-to-noise ratio. In amateur radio, that assumes a receiver bandwidth of 2,500 hertz. And in the digital modes, they express it something derived of Shannon's theorem, but basically it's EB over N0. And EB is the energy per bit, and N0 is the noise power in 1 hertz. So you're dealing with two different reference bases. The noise, the denominator being the noise power in 1 hertz, and with amateur radio, it's 2,500 hertz. So big difference. And just pause for a reset there. Wanted to continue that AE0BQ with. There is a chart here on this website I found, which is in the Netherlands. Very good data, very technical, detailed explanation of how EB over N0 is computed and defined. And so energy per bit over noise sub-zero is the reference point for the digital modes. And so the different modes work out to ranging from a theoretical limit of negative 1.59 dB in the digital modes up to 31 dB. And then that sort of maps over to minus 57 dB to plus 10 dB on amateur radio, the 2,500 hertz reference. If you want, I can read out the URL, but I'll leave that. AE0BQ back to net.
Okay. Now, real technical but good stuff if anybody's interested. Since you're there, you want to go ahead and give us the URL?
I just Googled and stumbled across. There may be better references than this. This is www.pa3fwm.nl/technotes/tn09b.html. What was that? Once again, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my ISO phonetics. Help me out with that if you can afterward. So it's P as in Paul, Alpha 3, Foxtrot, Whiskey, Mike, dot, Nancy Lima, / technotes, one word, lowercase, / tn09b.html. Over. AE0BQ back to net.
Okay, the last was that Tango Nancy 09 Bravo.
Yes, that's correct. AE0BQ back to net.
Okay, very good. All right, lots of stuff. We've had the simple explanations. We've had the more technical. What other questions do we have? Questions at this point?
GN?
GN, go.
Yeah, would anybody on the net like help getting on a whisper mode? One DEG.
DEG, good evening. Go ahead, please.
I was just checking in, basically, and I figured it would take the opportune moment to do so, and that is the digital modes is what I am wanting to do with my 706 here. So probably that would be a yes. I would like to get onto that later as soon as I acquire the CAT cables or the acquired cables that are needed for this 706. K1 DEG, that's all I have.
N6GN.
GN, go.
Mike, I think I have everything you need. You won't have to get any cables for this at all. I have an extra signal link on the shelf, I think, and it'll plug direct. It's got a cable for a 706, so you can just plug it in and be on in about 6 minutes.
Okay, I'll correspond with you in the emails.
That's good. N6GN.
Right. Glad to hook people up to get things going there. Thank you for your offer, Glenn, and maybe try to keep track of their, if other people are asking about that. I suppose in some cases people fail to think of whisper as being radio, since it's not quite a two-way communication, although in some ways it is, because you're getting responses, although not through the air. Am I correct on that one? You're sending a signal through the air, but you're getting responses through the internet as to what was heard on whisper. Is that right?
Yep, it's a beacon mode.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Other questions, please?
EMP.
EMP, go.
Yeah, another comment. Anyone can look at these modes just with an audio patch cable to patch headphone output, preferably from their radio, into a line-in input on a sound card, and run some free software and look at these different modes and decode them without having to transmit. Most of the modes have their own recommended frequency, like for PSK31. On the different bands, there's a recommended frequency for each mode, or a very narrow range of frequencies. And as was mentioned earlier, these are very narrow band. So as far as I know, all the modes, they use upper sideband, regardless of what band you're on. Even if you're down on 80 meters or 40 meters, they still use upper sideband. And the audio bandwidth of your receiver coming out, typically about 2.5 kilohertz or 3 kilohertz wide. Within that audio band, there could be a dozen conversations going on, and some of the software will display all of the conversations they can decode within that audio passband. So you'll have a bunch of lines of text coming across your screen based on the audio frequency. That's the offset from the carrier. And doing that, looking up, just Googling the frequency for, say, PSK31. It'll list all the frequencies for the different HF bands. And you can tune in and look on your screen and adjust your volume and whatnot, and see all these conversations coming out of the background. And 0 EMP.
Wow, okay. Oh, a quick way to have an introduction. And I think I could safely say that some of those modes you might even be able to download an app on your phone and hold the microphone in front of the radio and pick it up. Not all, certainly, and signal strength is going to be severely compromised, but that's also been done, isn't it, Greg?
It has. One of the guys here in Fort Collins that's getting into the digital modes, PSK31, he's got an iPhone app. He patches in through his, if it comes over USB, but he's got an interface for his iPhone, and he uses his iPhone for the computer. But some of the more robust modes, like MT63, I've heard of people decoding them just by holding the microphone up. So yeah, they can definitely do it. Although you'll get better results, of course, hardwiring it and adjusting your volume and all that.
This is N7GES with the TechNet. Yeah, obviously fine-tuning things a little bit is certainly going to improve. A little bit. Fine-tuning things is certainly going to make a difference, but at least that demonstrates how much signal comes through noise. And I would say that's probably a very, very interesting demonstration. So for nothing, no other, if for nothing else than a demonstration. So interesting stuff there. Okay, other comments or questions? Right. Well, I think provided a lot of good info, and hopefully at least anybody listening has learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and I hope that others have as well. These might bring questions to your mind for later. Again, remember to send questions to us if you would like. That Elmer's address also can be used if you would need help with some issue or other. That there's several of us on there that can attempt to answer questions for you directly. So that Elmer's at NCARC.net is a good multi-purpose address, but it definitely can be used for TechNet comments or questions. So I do encourage you to do that if you would like. Do we have any general questions at this point in time? Any topic questions regarding amateur radio?
AE0BQ.
Go ahead, BQ.
I did not catch the tail end of the gentleman's previous response. I have an ICOM IC7300, and the gentleman said, well, if you have one of those, all you need is a USB cable. I didn't catch what software was required on the computer end of things. If the gentleman's still listening, could you please come back and fill me in on that a little bit, if you could, please. AE0BQ, back to net.
Go ahead, Greg, if you're there.
Yeah, the software I use is FLDigi, Frank Lima Delta India Golf India, and I run it under Linux, and I believe, I'm Googling it here, I believe it also runs on Windows and Mac, and it's free. Does a bunch of modes, including PSK31 and Olivia and radio teletype. Let me find the right page for it here. But it does not do the Joe Taylor modes. The Whisper, FT8, the 144, all those Joe Taylor modes, that needs his software. Although it will probably run over USB to the ICOM as well. And then in that case, you don't use the computer's sound card. The radio, when you connect it, shows up as a USB sound device, and it also opens a control channel.
BQ, go ahead.
thank you very much for that information. I got out of that. I got FLDigi. I found the website very quickly, and I didn't fish out where you get the WSJT software, but I think I can find it here. Open source, blah. I'll figure that part out. I do have a Mac. I also run Linux, and I do have an IC7300, and I'm pretty sure I have several dozen USB cables. Thank you very much for the information. AE0BQ, back to net.
N6GN.
GN, go.
You can get the WSJT package from Joe's site. If you just Google WSJTX and look for the physics.princeton.edu, Pulsar K1JT, WSJTX HTML. No, I know you didn't record that, but just Google WSJTX, look for the Princeton physics.princeton.edu site, and you'll find distributions, binaries for Windows, Mac, and Linux there. And if you have any difficulty with making the 7300 work, there's a couple of 3 stations here in Lerner and Fort Collins, in fact, running 7300s on Whisper right now, and I'm sure we can make any details, any problems go away.
BQ.
Was that thank you or BQ? Does that take care of your question?
Yeah, BQ. Thank you very much. I did find that. Physics.princeton.edu, Pulsar, K1JT, WSJTX. Sure enough, there it's all right there. All the links were at the bottom of the page. I was actually sitting on that page and going, where's the links to the software? Well, you scroll down, it's all there. So, fool me once. All right, thank you very much for the information. AE0BQ, back to net.
EMP.
EMP?
Yeah, I don't use these modes too much, and the last time I updated my Linux or reinstalled to the newest version of the Linux that I use, I had a hard time getting FLDigi to talk to my radio and tune it and do the push-to-talk. And I ended up finding an online tutorial. I Googled specifically ICOM 7300 FLDigi Linux and found a detailed tutorial. I think I had to add my user account to dial out or something like that. I forget what I had to do now, but the audio path worked from the radio to the computer right away, and I could decode. But to make the radio key up and transmit, and to the program will control the frequency on the radio as well. So to tune the radio from the computer, there was a couple of missing pieces I had to find and implement in the configuration to get it to work. So if you struggle, look for, and I did not write down what I had to do, so next time I'll have to research it again. So if you have trouble, just look for a specific tutorial for your radio and find the most recent tutorial you can, and you should be good to go. N0 EMP.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is N7GES, and this is the NCARC TechNet. Any other questions? All right, any general purpose questions, general amateur radio questions this evening? N0BF. Good evening, Steve. N0BF.
Good evening. This is N0BF. I had a question about the Thursday night net, and I noticed on the web page that there's mention of a, and I've checked into this before, where you have a simplex net, but there's also discussion of APRS. I wonder if that net is still meeting on Thursday night.
on hiatus for a bit, sort of regrouping, reevaluating, and that sort of thing. So I am glad to hear that you're interested, and we're still interested. I just don't know exactly when and how we're going to continue at this point.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I'll just stay tuned. Well, I have a handheld that has EPRS, and I have it hooked up, but I've not been able to use it for any kind of messaging or anything that they talk about on there. So I just like to learn more about it and how it's used in this area. And so anyway, that's the idea. And I didn't know whether they covered it, you covered that or not. But anyway, I would like to join in again when it starts back up. This is N0BF.
KD02YU.
Good evening, Joe. TYU.
Yeah, I'm the EC for Aries. Can I help you with that question, sir?
He was asking about the simplex net, the preparation oh my gosh, Kevin. Preparedness. Oh my gosh. Oh, Kevin. Preparedness Education Group. Thursday night Simplex Net and once a month meetings where we deal with both Simplex and APRS.
Sorry, Kevin. I thought it was something he said on Thursday night, and I just went to there. Sorry, I'll shut up now. Thank you.
No, that's okay. That's why we do these things, to get information around. So thank you. Thank you for being there. All right. Any other general questions, please? All right. Well, I think we've covered things well. There may be questions come up later. Please do email us or check with us or check with any of the folks that you've heard discussing things tonight. I'm sure that any of them can answer a lot of questions or get you directed where you need to be. So do make yourself avail yourself of that information. I thank you all for participating this evening. We do have a topic up for next week, which is balance. What is a balun? What's the difference between baluns? What are the 3-to-1, 4-to-1 ratings? What is this current or voltage balun? How are they used in general? Lots of things to discuss, some of them very basic to antennas and amateur radio, but some of them that some amateurs may just not have run into or may have passed by in their series of study. So a good chance to remind people and learn more details than we might have learned by just answering the amateur radio test questions. So hopefully everybody will come back for that, and I hope I have plenty of people to elaborate and explain all of these issues as well. Thank you very much for your participation. Comments and are always welcome. Topic suggestions are always welcome. So do please send those along. So at this point, I will close the net and return the repeater to normal use. Again, thank you, N73s. Have a wonderful week. N7GES, clear.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.